This video is from an IG Live that I did with Shannon McNabb, and Shannon has been licensing her work without an agent, and I always have had a licensing agent, so I said 3 reasons that having an agent was great, and she gave 3 reasons why not having an agent was great, and we just discussed some really common questions around having a licensing agent.
For those who are coming from my Facebook group, I do again want to give a shout out to Jennifer for even, asking the question, do you have an agent? Should I get an agent? All of those kind of questions.
It's the question on everyone's mind.
Right? Everybody asks it. And
100 million.
Elizabeth was the first person, because we've been wanting to do a live together, and she was the first one. I was like, ooh, we should do this. Like, you have an agent, you love working with them. You've been with them for what, 7 years, right?
Yeah, about 7 years.
Yeah, which is amazing, because a lot of times people will be with the agent for a year or two and then leave, or,
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I am super excited to talk about this. And how we're going to kind of go through this is her and I have kind of come up with a few pros for each side of things, right? So she's going to be the pro agent side. I'm going to be the pro flying solo side, since that's kind of where we both come from.
Right.
And then I do want to leave some questions or time for questions at the end, because I know there are so many ins and outs, and obviously we can't possibly cover everything in our pros and cons list. So yeah, I think we can go ahead and get started. There seems to be quite a few people in here. Hello, everybody. Hi, Erica.
Hi, guys.
Oh, one of my friends who's now in New York. Hi. All right. So why don't we go ahead? I'm going to kick it to you first.
Sure.
And give us your first pro for having an agent.
Definitely. So first, I just want to, if anyone doesn't know me, I'm Elizabeth Silver. And no, it's okay. Of course, hopefully people do know me, but just in case, I am a service pattern designer, and I worked in-house for about 10 years. And then I'm almost at my 8-year anniversary for working for myself. June 1st, I'm going to get a cake. And and I've been licensing for about 7 years, and I started licensing when I got my agent. So that's just a little bit of background for, like, I did not license any of my work before having an agent, so I actually don't have the perspective of the other side, which is what you're for.
Which is kind of awesome. Like, yeah, I totally forgot that we should probably do basic introductions. Reminding me that,
Well, just to talk about, like, what our relationship with having an agent is. So you have been licensing your work for how long? How long have you been licensing?
So I am right about, it's funny that we started just about the same time of year. Like, mine's July 1st, 2016. So this will be 4 years. Because
Awesome.
Before that I was freelancing doing other stuff. So yeah, it's been 4 years, and the whole time I've been flying solo. Been curious about getting an agent, looked into it a couple times, been rejected by agents before, but I'm still really happy doing things on my own. So,
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So I haven't seen the other side. So you're the voice of wisdom of the other side. I can only speak to my experience. And the other thing I wanted to note before I go into my pros is every agent is different. I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit at the end of, like, things to think about when you're having this, deciding. But, I can really only speak to I've only been with one agent. So just like anything, you don't really know what, I've talked to a lot of people about agents. I'm sure you have too, but like, every agent is different, et cetera, et cetera. So now that we've got all those disclaimers out of the way, I'm happy to explain. So first, my first pro for having an agent is kind of the obvious one, which is all the paperwork and the contract expertise that you get, when you have an agent. Yeah, they're like, knowing those contracts, having had the experience, those agents have experience with contracts. They've done it before. They've done it for all different products. They know, the legal terms. Maybe they've hired, like, I know, maybe they've hired lawyers to get specific contracts that they use regularly. I mean, it depends again, but all that paperwork and, like, legal stuff is handled, and you don't have to worry. I mean, you should read your contract. Don't, like, just think it's all, good. But all the kind of, like, admin negotiation stuff is all handled by your agent. So that is a big plus.
Now I'm curious, because again, the other side of that for me is the fact that I get to learn on the job, right? Like when I got my first contract at Surtex, right, and I came home and I'm like, shoot, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a contract. And I had to do all the research myself, which obviously that's a huge time suck. But I also feel like it really helped me get a grasp for that side of things because you kind of have to hurry up and figure it out, right? So I'm curious, your experience, do you feel like did you ever go through contract terms with your agent so you know like the basics kind of thing? I mean, I assume so, you're a business savvy gal, but you know, like
yeah, I mean, I didn't do it specifically with my agent, but yes, reading my contracts, I mean, I had to get familiar with what's actually going on. You know, I'm not a person to just sign my name on anything. So definitely like looking up all those terms and, you know, getting to the bottom of what is a good, you know, what you can expect for rates and stuff like that. I leaned heavily on the Graphic Artists Guild, you know, pricing and ethical guidelines for, especially for, not so much for pricing because that is kind of wild, but it's all over the place, but for, you know, contract terms and information about that. So yes, definitely have a grasp of it, but having to write any sort of like legal anything, or, you know, I can just sort of, if I want a different, not that this happens very often, but if I want some sort of different you know, term added in or something like that, then I can just say in plain English to my agent, like, what about this? And then they can hopefully make it happen in a more like legal way.
yeah, having an extra set of eyes on your contracts like that definitely sounds amazing from my perspective. You know, it's like I don't have a lawyer on contract or anything, and so it's usually just little me. So yeah, having a second pair of eyes is a great pro.
Yeah, and a second pair of eyes that has seen a lot of contracts, a lot. So that's like, you know, a big, that's pulling from a pool of knowledge and, you know, having all that stuff. So that is a big pro. And what is your pro for being by yourself?
My first pro, and again, this is probably the most obvious one people think of when you're going it alone, is I make more money for each licensing buyout contract, right? So
sure do.
I make all of it, as opposed
100%.
to a cut of it, where obviously you want to pay your agent well if they're doing a good job, and so they take a giant cut into your paycheck. But
yes,
going it alone, I get the whole enchilada, which especially for certain things that don't go for as much, you know, or licensing royalties that take, you know, a year or two to receive, it's nice to get the full amount. So.
Agreed. I have not gotten that full amount, but I do see it every time on my little statements, and then I see the minus my percent, the, you know, agent's percentage, and I'm like, oh, wouldn't it have been nice to have that full amount? So I can definitely understand that's huge.
Yeah, well, and I guess we probably should also mention that the pricing or the cut that an agent takes is wildly different in the industry. I would
100%.
say, like, everything from what I've heard from a bunch of my fellow artists who have agents is it's probably between 30 and 50, and I would say closer to 50 is probably more realistic for what a new artist right now.
Yeah. I don't think I've even heard 30. I've heard 35 at best. 35 to 50 is pretty much what standard that I've heard. So yeah, even, I mean, you know. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
I'm not going to share my percentage because here's the reason I'm not going to share. I'm normally very upfront with that, but you know what, I realized that my agency has different percentages, and so I don't want to. Anyone who's watching from my agency, they might have a different percentage. You know, everyone negotiates different things with different clients, and so if an agent tells you their rate, that's another thing to remember. You might be able to negotiate a little bit. So I don't want to, you know. Start any trouble within my agency. Not that I would, you know, but
totally understandable. And it's actually a great point. Like, I always say advocate for yourself when you're, you know, in negotiations with your contract, and that includes if you're looking for representation.
100%.
Anything is negotiable, including the rate.
Yes.
You can always ask, even if it's a flat out no, you at least asked the question.
Of course. Yeah, agreed.
Great. So what's your second pro for agencies?
So my second thing is that you are benefiting from the relationships that they have forged potentially for other artists, right? So that's a double-edged sword, but what I'm saying is like when you're working, Shannon, you're making all these contacts, you're working hard, you are, getting the face-to-face contact. But if I was by myself, I'd be doing the same thing. And it's like the work, we're both doing the exact same work. So with the agency, they're doing all the work, but then all the artists get to benefit from that versus it's just one person benefits and now another artist has to do that and another artist. So when my agency has a lot of kind of big name artists, not like huge, but big in licensing. And so I can't say that this has happened like, oh, I'm definitely benefiting from that. And that's not necessarily true, but in theory, like they have some big deals with big manufacturers because of these other artists that have big names. So it's like, in theory, those manufacturers can see my artwork too when they log into the website and, see all the things. So it's like, where Nike or whatever, like Keds would never see my work, maybe they're seeing it because of my agent's relationships.
Right. Well, and I think that speaks more to their client list. I mean, yes, certain artists would probably pull in certain people, but agencies overall probably have a much larger client list than an individual designer, right? So I assume your agency probably has thousands of contacts at this point, right? Because they've been in business for so long. And in my 4 years, I have probably 100 to 200, and obviously that number changes as the relationships change with each client. But tapping into that giant list, that's incredible, right? The flip side of that, I would say, is sometimes, especially the bigger an agency is, the more you compete in with the artists in your agency, right? So if a company comes to your agent and it has, needs to buy 10 pieces, well, if there's 30 artists, the likelihood that you're going to get picked for one of those 10 pieces goes down.
100%. Yeah, that's true.
So you're right. It is a double-edged sword.
Yeah, totally is. And that's, and I always say that, like when I go to Surtex and walk around and visit Shannon, who's working so hard, and all the other artists who are out there working hard, and they're like, oh, are you, exhibiting? And I'm like, well, my agent's doing it for me. And they're always like, oh, that sounds so nice. And then I'm remind them that like, but they're also showing off 35, 40 other artists. And I have a square this big on that board. And you have this whole like booth that's all your artwork. So that's totally the flip side of it.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. And one's not better than the other, right? Like it's just a different tactic.
Totally. It's just what makes sense for you. So unfortunately, we're not going to get to the bottom of this question. There is no definitive answer for anyone who's tuning in thinking like by the end of this, I will 100% know the way to go. Well, maybe you will. Hopefully you will, because you'll, but yes, it really just depends on what you want to concentrate. Yeah. So was your second pro or
no,
the idea that there's competition? No. Okay. So what's your second pro?
We talked all this before too, because we had so many pros and cons.
I know. We're only doing 3 to be succinct because we don't have all our lives to do this.
Yeah. Oh, and Retro Rudolph, there will be time to ask questions at the end. So in case it flips too fast, ask your question again at the end when we say we're going to take questions. So,
sounds good.
All right. So my second pro is that you maintain complete control over which clients see your artwork. So again, because a agent's contact list is so vast, a lot of times there may be a company or two that you're not really sure you want to work with for whatever reason. My example of this is Hobby Lobby. That is one company. Under no circumstances will I want to work with them with their current situations they've been going through. So, and I've even told people at trade shows, like I had this lovely man at my booth this year who basically point blank mentioned that Hobby Lobby was one of their main clients. And I said, I am happy to work with you, but I don't, I'm not interested in selling to Hobby Lobby. And he totally understood it. But sometimes you don't necessarily get that specific option when an agent is sharing a bunch of work to like the middleman person in between your agent and Hobby
and the
Lobby.
Retailer. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
The manufacturer in the middle. So.
Right. So my like perspective on that is that totally that makes sense, and you're right that I definitely have a lot less control over what is shown to these places. But at least so far in my experience, I have the option to not sign a contract with those people. So yes, Hobby Lobby might be looking at my art, but I don't have to license to them because I'm finding out. Well, I guess actually, not always is there a retailer deal in place, right? So sometimes you're just going to a manufacturer and you really don't know where it's going to be sold. But I guess usually with like those bigger retailers, there is something in place versus I'm just curious because like sometimes have you ever licensed with a manufacturer that you like, people always ask like, oh, that's so beautiful, where can I get it? And you're like, I don't really know because it's in a store. Or do you always know what stores your product go to?
One of the questions, like if I have an inkling that they are the type of buyer who sells to certain places that I'm uncomfortable with, and usually again I will research this on their website. They'll usually have like, this is where we sell our stuff, right? So if I see one of those, I will specifically ask, is this being shown to X? Or a lot of times when they're doing their buyer presentations, they say this is specifically for a
we're going to do a presentation for them. Yeah, right. So I definitely don't get all that intel. I mean, I suppose I maybe could if I was really, I don't think my agent has time to tell me all that, and I won't have time to ask all those questions. So that makes sense. Yeah.
So we have a few questions coming in specifically on Hobby Lobby. I just want to talk about it just for a nanosecond on why I personally don't work with Hobby Lobby. And there's actually two reasons. One is their stance on providing contraceptives to their workers. And again, you can Google this later. And then the other is the fact that they have been known to purchase artifacts that were stolen from overseas, like the Iran area, and they had to pay a huge fine a couple of years ago because of that. And actually just something new came up that they have to actually ship something back because it was found to be, a unethical transaction. So again, those are the reasons why I'm personally not interested in working with them, but I'm not saying that you have to feel that way, right? It's a very personal thing.
Yeah, yeah. And Retro Rudolph's, I didn't know any of that stuff, but Retro Rudolph's pointed out they're not so friendly to the LGBTQ community.
Lori is correct. It is definitely, they're very conservative. I don't want to say that and sound negative, right? Like I don't mean that.
But, yeah. Right. So moving on.
Yeah,
so my third thing, right? My third pro for having an agent is the gift of time, right? So, I am paying, of course, I'm giving a percentage of my income to my agent, but I'm spending personally, like, I'm just creating the artwork. I'm not doing any of the outreach. I have done outreach in the past, and I won't say that like having an agent means like sit back, kick up your feet. You're totally like, you don't have to do anything. The jobs just roll right in. I'm not saying that by any stretch because that's not true. But, by putting it in my agent's hand to find these deals, I am freed up to work on my portfolio, to diversify my income streams, because I don't believe in just licensing my work. That is not going to support me. So, getting freelance work and doing other things. So that is what my agent is doing, and I can do other stuff. So that's a big one.
Yeah, no, that again, like I think when I was originally considering representation, that was honestly like the main reason I was tempted, right, is to get back a little of that extra time, because something that I've learned over the past couple of years is, besides the art making, which is really important, the marketing is the next biggest thing you have to do.
Sure
I
is.
probably spend more time on marketing myself and reaching out to new contacts and current contacts than I actually do making art.
Totally.
So
and that's probably why you're successful. I mean, it's a lot. Or to make it work, it can be a lot.
Yeah, it can be a tough thing to juggle. So, and actually, this is a great kind of lead in to my third pro, which is the reason I haven't been looking at agencies recently anymore, really, is design freedom. So one thing that a lot of agencies require is a certain number of pieces each month that you send them, right? So it's usually stipulated in the contract, you know, you have to complete, you know, 10 pieces a month. The average I've actually heard is 12 pieces a month. And that scared the pants off of me because I'm not, if you've ever heard me talk about my design process, I have a really great process, but I'm still really slow. So I typically only design, you know, if I'm lucky, 8 pieces a month, but usually it's more like 4 to 6. Again, because I'm doing so much marketing on the stuff that I've already created. So even if some of my time was freed up by the agent, I could not guarantee that I would produce that much work and regularly. Like, I feel like it would give me a coronary, you know, just from having to worry about every month and deliver, because I'm such a people pleaser. So
Totally.
but I know we talked a little bit and you said that at least currently you don't have any specific stipulations, right?
Yeah, I don't have any requirements of how much. I have heard that too, though. I have talked to other people and other agencies definitely require it. And again, I don't even want to say that my agency doesn't require it, because for all I signed 7 years ago, and for all I know, new clients have a different contract. Like, you just don't know. Like, I can't make any guarantees about what my agent does. I just know what I do, which is I do not have a set amount of artwork that I need to contribute. But obviously, you know, the more you contribute, the more likely you're going to have success. So when I don't contribute as much, like, I'm not getting as many licensing deals. So that's, you know, I mean, it certainly makes sense as a stipulation. For agencies that do have that stipulation, it makes sense. It's like, if you want to guarantee that partnering with as an agent, you want to guarantee that partnering with an artist is going to pay off, that you doing all this work to market this audience artist is going to pay off. So therefore, they need to do the work of being the artist, right? So, like, I do get it.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense from a business perspective that you want it to be a very symbiotic relationship. And so they're doing all this work to promote you. And so you don't want to just sit on your laurels and be like, oh, well, whatever, you know, they you know, send me contract wise is fine. No, you need to, just like if you're on your own, you need to keep creating work. So yeah.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. So that's that. I mean, it really just depends on where you are and what you want, what you want to spend your time on. And I really think that it's so dependent on the agent and your relationship with them. And it's also, now I'm like losing my train of thought, but it's just really like, it depends on your contract. It depends on the agent. It depends on, you know, where you are at that moment. And so there is no, like, I'm definitely not like, oh, you know, having an agent. I think I go back and forth, you know, honestly, at this point, I'm not gonna stop having an agent, but if for some reason my agent wanted to like let me go, if they were going in a different direction, like, I don't know that I would be in a big rush to find another agent. I don't know what I'd do exactly. So
right. Well, the flip side of that for me, if I found the right agent with the right relationship, and, you know, like, I figured, you know, whatever the terms, like, hopefully there wouldn't be the, you know, piece per month term, I would seriously consider it, given all the stuff we've talked about today. But yeah, I think it's basically, it's a very personal decision, right? And so I think one of the biggest
one you're going to go up and down on, right? So like as I've said, I've gone through times like in 7 years, if you think I've never like thought about like, oh, that's the other thing. Like, even I do think I have a great agent, and I've thought about looking for other agents. Like, you're never going to be 100% happy with where you are. The grass is kind of always greener in some ways. And like, it's just a tough, and everyone I know, like a lot of my friends who are like book illustrators, and they have agents for book illustration, children's book illustration, you know, they have the same exact struggles as art licensing agents. And it's like, oh, I don't know if, you know, oh, I don't feel like they're getting me enough work, or they're making me do this, or like whatever. There's just always these ups and downs. So
right. Well, and that's actually a good point. So there were a couple of extra things that like we didn't cover in pros and cons that I wanted to make sure to mention. And one of those is the fact that you can actually have multiple agents if you, like, for example, I'd say that probably the most common is someone who does like editorial book illustration, like children's books, right? So they'll have an illustration specific agency, and then they might have a second
Have an
agency
art
that does
licensing.
licensing.
Yeah.
But there are
Yep.
some agents that want to do all of that, right? So again, it's one of those things that's in your contract, right? But I would say you can have that option of having.
Yeah. Yeah. You could have only, I feel like that's the only situation if they don't do, like editorial and then art licensing. But there's no, you can't be having like an agent for greeting cards and an agent for fabric or something like that. That's kind of crazy.
Well, I just want to mention Jennifer Nelson, who is such a fabulous lady. She's actually answering questions for us in the chat.
Oh, perfect. That's awesome. Jennifer, thank you. You're the best. We'll just sit here and catch up and you can no, it's good because obviously Jennifer, of course, if anyone doesn't know, is an agent, so she has the perspective. Which is
in the Advice for Artists Facebook group, you are missing out because there are such
100%.
quality conversations that happen in there. So
yes.
yeah.
So
and actually, one of my other things I wanted to mention, and Jennifer actually told me this herself when I did a one-on-one with her, asking whether like I should look for representation, was two things. One, you need to like the person you're working with, right? You need to, like, on a personal level, you need to have that rapport, like kind of like how Elizabeth and I are just, going, back and forth. You need to like that person, right? And so that takes time to figure out. So definitely, like, before you sign on the dotted line, like
have a few conversations.
Yeah, via Skype or whatever with them. And then the other part is definitely try and do a trial period, right? So a lot of times they'll let you do like a 6-month trial to see if it's a good fit for both of you. And I would definitely say do that because you have no idea going in, even if you feel like it's the best thing ever, if that's actually going to be the case once you're in.
Right.
So.
Agreed. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I agree. So should we take some questions?
Yeah, let's go ahead and take some questions. I know you guys have asked some.
I know. We can't really go back.
Scroll. I'm like,
I don't think we can go. Oh, wait, you can scroll. I'll probably hang up, but.
A couple people did ask you what agency you were at. I did see that one come in.
Yeah. I am with Jewel Branding. Yeah. So they have a very big, at this point they have probably 45, 50 designers. I think when I signed on, they had maybe like 25. And they kind of go between real brands and individual artists. So they represent, I think they represent like Hang 10 and like they used to represent Airheads. I don't know if they still do, but so like things which are actual like licensed properties. And like interior designers and stuff. And then they, represent a lot of artists too. So they're kind of, they do it all, So, and that's, and I've been with them for 7 years and I've seen them grow so much, not just grow, like, get new artists, but like, their website has been like it's like, so they're making their own software now. Like they have all this like really cool stuff that is what I hoped for when I first signed on. It was kind of like, oh, this is nice, but wouldn't it be great if, and now they've like built that out to be amazing. So
that's awesome. So we've gotten 2 questions that are kind of similar, where it's working with your agent. Do you have to go through them to sell all your work, or are there other opportunities available to you outside of that? And I know for you there are. So can you kind of speak to the licensing versus freelance just a little bit?
Yeah, of course. So I have a very distinctive split in my business. Again, this is all depends on your contract, and it's something you need to consider if you're talking with an agent. And I know different agents do things differently. But basically, if I'm doing work for hire, meaning I'm doing work that is a brief, where, a client is giving me a trend board and like a specific thing that they need me to design, and I'm getting paid for that time, like in an hourly fashion or per project fashion. If my name is not going to be on it, it's going to be just for the company. It's not going to be like copyright Elizabeth Silver. That is considered freelance work for hire work. And I do a lot of that, and it has nothing to do with my agent. So I don't split that work with them, pay wise, and I find it all myself. They don't find it for me. I find those connections myself. So, I mean, I definitely do the marketing end on that front. And sometimes you don't know if a company freelances or licenses or how they work. So sometimes there is some overlap. But when I find out that it's going to be a licensing situation, I pass it to my agent.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, and
like-
again, I think we also should mention that this might be different for different agencies. Like there might be some agencies that do require like all of the,
Yes.
you know, commission work to go through them. So yeah, I just knew she had a very specific perspective
Yeah.
on this. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so
Someone
we
said,
have-
can you speak? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just looking at the next question. Potentially, can you both speak to how you found your companies through online, how you found companies through online courses, loads of research? Oh, so like our contacts, is that what I guess?
Well, and kind of similar to that, there was someone asking about what marketing that I do, you know, besides like social media and that kind of thing to get my name out there, right? So it's kind of all the same thing. So from the freelance or from the flying solo side, my number one honestly is trade shows, which is a little awkward to say right now because of the situation that we're all going through and all of them were canceled. Like actually I would be in Vegas right now I was going to attend the licensing expo for the first time. And it was literally, I think today was the last day. So I would literally be in Vegas right now, but it got canceled obviously. But yeah, my experience in the past 4 years is that trade shows has been the number one lead magnet, I guess you would say, for me getting my clients. Beyond that, I do a lot of research online, finding new companies, finding their email addresses, you know, reaching out. I have a couple of classes on Skillshare that kind of walk you through this. One's Finding Buyers for Your Art, which is literally the A to Z, how I find them. And then Airtable is how I keep track and contact them and have my whole company and contract list fleshed out so that I don't lose my mind trying to find the information. So those are kind of the main things that I do for myself. And then obviously social media, Instagram, that, especially if you're just starting out, it's not as important. I would say as you build your brand, it becomes more important. Like I am just now getting work from Instagram, but the first couple of years, I wasn't getting any. So yeah. Now I'm curious on your side of things, you know, is there anything specific that the agency does or that you do outside of the agency for marketing yourself?
Yeah, so similar to you, I mean, because I think of it as, you know, I have looked for licensing work in the past, you know, just to kind of supplement what my agent is doing. And I'm always looking for freelance work. So I do similar like research techniques, which, you know, looking online, finding companies, finding, you know, kind of narrowing in on different things. And that is also something I cover in my Start Your Service Pattern Business course, which just finished. But for my agent, they do, you know, they go to the trade shows, of course.
And they get to go to many. That's another benefit of an agent is they get to go to multiple. Like I usually do one here because I can't afford more.
Yeah. They usually have a booth at Surtex and the licensing show in Vegas, and then they go to a lot of them like to take meetings and stuff like that. Right. So they'll go to Atlanta and they go to like High Point and some other ones. So they do a lot of trade show work, and then they have a website which has all their artwork, like all the artists' artwork uploaded and like categorized and tagged and everything. So once they find people, then those people can sign in, you know, password protected and all that, but they can just look through so much artwork and just kind of find that stuff. And as far as other marketing, you know, I know some advertising, I think in some of the magazines, like when it's time to, they do like talks at some of these shows, you know, so that's like getting a little more high profile. And they, I'm not totally sure of all the marketing things that they do.
Yeah, but I mean, that's good information to have, that, you know, like the different ways that they do. And again, because they have a bigger reach, they can do more than an individual artist can. You know, again, like obviously they have a ton of artists that they're promoting, but they can do more with that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So a couple times I think we got this question. I know Jennifer asked it, at least that I'm looking at right now, is can an artist at the beginning of their career sign on with an agent, or are they looking for more established designers? And again, I think this is something that is agent dependent. Because I do know of agents that will absolutely look at anyone, even if you're brand new. If you have just a small portfolio, but they see really great promise, they are more than happy to take you on. But if, like, again, it's more from the agency side, some may be more reluctant to take on new artists. So I don't know if you have any inkling how Jewel does that, but
yeah, I'm not sure how Jewel does it now. I mean, I was just starting out when I had been doing surface pattern design for 10 years, but I was just starting out on my own. I didn't have any licensing stuff, and I had a small portfolio, very small portfolio, more, I would say, examples of my work, because I didn't own any of the stuff that I did for when I worked at the Gap and at the other, for home textiles and stuff. So I could show what kind of work I did, but I only had like 10 or so pieces of actual, like, this is mine, this can be copyright Elizabeth Silver, like, here it is, So I started very small and just, grew with the agency, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure at this point, because I think getting an agent has become a lot more competitive.
true.
I'm not sure if that's still something. I wonder, people have told me that, they have not been able to sign with, they've been trying to sign with Jewel and it didn't work out. And I'm sort of like, yeah, I don't know if I would be able to sign with Jewel with my work at this point. I might just be legacied in. So, it's just, I can't say that, definitely you're fine, but I would say, why not try? Like, that is what I will always say. Why not try? If you're starting out and you don't have a ton of stuff, don't say like, well, I won't be able to get an agent, so what's the point? Like, send your work out, of course, and it might work, it might not work. If it doesn't work, then you try again in 6 months when you have more work. Like, that's just it. What are you sitting there for? I don't know. I'm getting out of things.
We talk ad nauseum on this. It's like, we're such people of action.
Do it.
Do it. Like, put your art online. Send those emails to art directors. Send the emails to the agencies. Like, what have you got to lose? Obviously, there is that fear of rejection and all like that. But it's something we all deal with, and you're going to have to get over that if you want to make it in this business, because rejection is just part of the game.
Totally is.
So. Totally
is. Yeah. So we can start a whole nother live on that, girl. I would go off.
Mindset is such a big thing. Yeah. So no, that's true. All right, so let's try and we were going to try and wrap up at about 45, so we got a few more minutes to take a few more questions. So one was, does the cost of an agent outweigh the cost of your selling? To simplify, is it worth it? And so that's kind of more to you, Elizabeth.
Does the cost of meaning, like, am I getting more work than the percentage that I'm?
I mean, the way she asked it to me, it's like, is the money you're receiving from your agency, is it worth it to have that relationship versus going on your own, to you right now?
To me right now, yes, because I wouldn't be looking, I'm right now, I'm in my freelance stride, and that is what I'm looking for specifically. So, I mean, I could be looking for it's like, how could I possibly know? I don't really know what I could be getting if I was doing it myself. But, just being so hands off for the last 7 years, I mean, like I said, to some degree, and at different times, I've done more research and tried to get a little bit more involved. But in the end, I've just kind of fallen back, because it's like, they're doing their thing and I don't have the stamina to be constantly doing it, basically. So I do that for my freelance, and I just, so any royalties I'm receiving right now, to me, is like, I didn't do anything except for draw. So that, I'm not going to trade shows to exhibit. I'm not doing a ton of promotion about my artwork at this point in my career. So yes, for me right now, it is worth it. But I will say, I'm also not raking in the cash. Like, this is not a super high profitable thing for me. My licensing portion of my income is like 12 or 15%. I can't remember the exact thing right now, but I'm very open with my like money. And last year I earned $10,000 from licensing. That was my take home after agents cuts and all that kind of stuff. So that is not a ton of money. That would not support me. So
Right, yeah. And
my lavish lifestyle, that would never support my lavish lifestyle. So, no.
Well,
But obviously, it wouldn't support anyone's lifestyle. So licensing is not a huge portion of my thing. So I should say that I'm not like 1,000. You know, I'm not all like making millions of dollars on licensing. So.
Well, and as a counterpoint to that, I was like, I'm like, I should look up how much mine is. So for not commissions, because that's separate for you, my licensing, which I consider licensing in buyouts, was 37% of my income last year.
So that's good.
Yeah.
Bigger. Yeah. She's working hard, guys. She's working hard. So perfect.
All right. Well, let's take one more question and then wrap it up. So, all right. So this is an interesting one. So if we're just starting off, only doing surface pattern design on the side, which path would you recommend to start with? So maybe we can both give our opinions on this one.
Sure.
Because I'm in the going it your alone camp, I personally believe there's a lot you can learn on the job, doing it on your own. Like even at the very beginning of my career, I told myself no matter what, I was going to work at least the first 12 months without looking for an agent, because I wanted those experiences of, you know, learning the ins and outs of contracts, learning pricing for, you know, the different structures and everything, and having that negotiation experience. And I feel very strongly that that is very important. Even if you eventually sign with an agent and they end up doing all of that, having that foundation is really, really helpful. So that's my take. What about you, Elizabeth?
That's a tough one, because part of me wants to say, if you're doing it part-time, creating the art takes up a lot of time. So clearly having an agent who does the marketing portion of it can be super helpful. But it really is a tough one, because it takes a lot of, you know, like I said, it's not like, oh, you have an agent, now just like sit back and let the cash roll in. Like, I got an agent, basically, like I did get an agent kind of thinking that, like, so not like, oh, I'm gonna be rich, but like I didn't have a lot of freelance work. I just started out on my own for like, I've been maybe for like a year, and I didn't have a lot of freelance work. I didn't have any licensing work. And I was like, if I partner with an agent, then that's how I'm going to get my career going. And I mean, yes, it got my licensing career going, but is it my whole career? No, obviously not. It's 10% or 15% of my career. So it's you know, it's really hard to say whether it's like, you're still gonna have to put in a lot of work either way. So it's just sort of what you prefer. I don't know. I guess, I'm sorry. I usually am pretty decisive, but I'm having a hard time with this one.
Well, because I mean, again,
if you could do a short-term contract, you know, if you could do a trial thing, then that could be a way. But I guess I would just say, no matter what, even if you go alone or you don't go alone, you have to remember that it is like a full, like a total, you can't just make the art and just like, you know, hope that it's all going to work out, basically.
Yeah.
There's still so much to do.
And do all the,
yeah,
you know, like, yeah.
I know. And that's hard when you're part-time. Like I had the luxury of being like, just going for it and being full-time. So that is really hard. And I hate to like say that it's not doable, because it is doable, but I just I'm not sure which is best, honestly. So.
Yeah, and again, it's a personal decision. Like I said, like that's what I advocate for, but that doesn't mean that it would, you know, like going it alone for at least a full year is right for you. Especially if you're part-time, you might want someone to help you
that support,
grow that
yeah,
side of the business, so that you can take your mind off of it. You know, like again, it's so personal.
Yeah. So. Honestly, what I would recommend, here's the thing: submit to agents
and see
what comes back. Because you might get, maybe an agent comes back to you and says, "I'd love to work with you," blah blah blah. See if they sell you on it. You can always say, I don't think this sounds like the right partnership for me, and decide to go it alone. But honestly, if you're thinking, should I get one or shouldn't I get one? Can you get one? Can you get one? That's sort of a thing. So like, submit to ones you're interested in, and you know, see if they charm you with their all the things that they can offer you, you know, because it is still a negotiation, right? So that is my best advice. Shannon, we could talk about this for 400 years, but
We totally can. We could
10
stay
minutes,
up
my
all
small
day.
children are going to be coming in here, pounding on the door, demanding snacks. So we
And
just
my
have to
dog
wrap it
is
up.
Whining. I don't know if anybody's been hearing, but my dog has been whining behind
Yes.
the door. So yeah,
I'm grateful that I have not yet been, you know, I did lock the door, but there hasn't been pounding. So anyway.
All right, so to wrap up, let's, you know, like obviously, I know some of you came from Elizabeth's side, some of you came from my
Yeah,
side.
let's do a little.
Where can people find you? What are you working on right now? And let's wrap this up.
Definitely. I am eSilver Design. Is my Instagram. You can find me at elizabethsilver.com, and just subscribe to my newsletter. I'd love to have you. I do surface pattern trends once a month.
Yeah, and hers are always really fun to read too. Like she sent one out today and it made me lol. Like the licking the doorknobs thing was hilarious. Like, please don't actually do that at the end. Was hilarious.
Do not.
So,
I wrote it. I was like, people are going to think I'm serious. Don't do it. Yeah, so sign up for my newsletter. I'd love to have you. And Shannon, what are you up to? Tell the people.
I am so in like beast work mode right now. I know many of you are already following me on my brand new account, Sketch Design Repeat. It is going to hopefully eventually be this huge resource for classes and support for the surface design community at large. I just launched just the Instagram because I at least wanted to get something out there, but I'm working really hard on the website and I am hoping to get that nailed in the next couple of weeks. So again, signing up for my newsletter would get you on the
best way to keep in touch. That's basically it for both of us, right? Sign up for our newsletters. We keep you updated, creative business advice, whatever. I do trends, you do just advice and good blog information.
So right now, if you sign up through my website, which is shannonmcnabb.com, or if you sign up, there's a link from my Sketch Design Repeat Instagram. They both go to the same place, but you basically get my guide to how you reach out to art directors. So if you're not really ready to reach out to an agent just yet, it's a great thing to kind of, you know, wrap your head around like the best practices for creating good emails so that you get replies and opens from the art directors, which is what we all want. So yeah.
Totally. Awesome.
Yeah, so we're up to really crazy, amazing things. I think Elizabeth, like we're probably going to do this again at some point because we just have way too much fun talking about the biz side of things.
For sure.
And for those who have asked, yes, I do plan on saving this. This is my first Instagram live I've hosted, so I hope I don't screw it up. But
no, if you can't post it, it might not be you. So we don't know. You never know with Instagram. Like honestly.
Okay, yeah, so it will hopefully be added to this account. There'll be a little slide button on IGTV. It'll be added there so that you can rewatch this whenever you want. So, yeah. I think we're
all right. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah.
We'll see you on the interwebs.